Hi everyone, in today's video I thought it'd be fun to do something a little different. I wanted to highlight a project that I worked on at the end of last year. It was for a public service video, to kind of get people out to vote type of thing. The video was a quirky 1970s inspired piece, kind of soul shaft-esque, I guess you could say. I thought it'd be fun to showcase this project because it's a different thing that I have on my channel, one. And it's important, and I always mention this in every video, that composers need able to compose different types of music efficiently, stylistically as accurate as possible. And so I thought it'd be fun to showcase this style of music. It's also a comedy, so it deals a lot with timing and knowing where to put phrases and where to rest to accentuate the punchline. And then it also has different instrumentation orchestration that I thought would be cool to dive into. But before we dive into the analysis, let's watch it and then we'll discuss it. So here it is.
You registered to vote, Roomie?
You know it. And we're early voting, too.
Y'all gotta ride to the polls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
Oh, I got you. We can take my hybrid.
You got a hybrid?
Yeah. It runs on gas and prayer.
Got a plan to vote.
Oh, yeah. Did you look up your polling place? No. Got it.
Make sure your whole block votes. Register to be a block box at ngpaf.org/block.
So the first thing I want to chat about is the orchestration. So I've got bass guitar, lots of different drums, an organ, so that's kind of my main core rhythm section. And then I have a horn little trio, which is trumpet, trombone, and saxophone, tenor sax. And then I also have a flute that kind of does some little flurries over top. But first, let's chat through the opening little section. It just starts with drums and bass. This is rough audio, so don't judge too harshly.
You registered to vote, Roomie?
Bitch, you know it. And we're early voting, too.
Cool. So this is the first kind of punch. So we start with the bass, obviously, and the drums. And then we have the little horn stab, a la like James Brown, at the cut to this kind of color, silly craziness thing. So just drums and bass. So we have, if you notice here, I have a little bass hit that I have that coincides with the hit to color there. So and then we go back into it. And there's a little flute flurry. Funny thing, I was actually working with the producer early on. In the first pass, I just had the kind of stabs and then the drums and stuff. And I sent it over to him. We were chatting, kind of working through notes and stuff. And I was like, man, we should add some flute. Like, I actually mentioned the film Anchorman with Ron Burgundy, how he has like the jazz flute.
You play jazz flute?
I dabble.
And he laughed and laughed, and I was like, yep, that's what we're going to do. And if you notice, the trumpets and the horn section is just playing a little stab. So this little cue is in C, so there's not a lot going on harmonically, but we'll talk about that later. But it's just playing essentially the third, the fifth, and the seven. It's very common voicings for the little horn section. And then I've got this flute playing this little chromaticism stuff. with a little glissando there. And then if you notice after that, we've got a space. So we have this whole thing here. And goes back to this, the bass and the drums.
You registered to vote, Rumi?
And then I have a little fill in the bongos. So we have this groove back here. And we have the break here for just
Registered
the
to
bass.
vote, Rumi?
Bitch, you know it. And we're early voting too.
So, interestingly enough, I actually had the drums and the bass going through this whole section at the very beginning of it.
You registered to vote, Rumi?
Bitch, you know it.
But it felt really heavy. And so I wanted to be able to have that, because we're trying to build to this line, you know it. And so I thought having space would allow for that to breathe, to be funnier. So it accentuates the punchline, which I think is the goal of this. So it's silly and quirky. And then after that, we have, if you notice right here as well, all throughout the whole thing, if I pull the movie back, notice that the tempo changes a little bit. And the tempo changes because I had to move it to have it fit on the cut. So there's some things you have to do sometimes to make things line up. Later on, I have a bar of 2 as opposed to the full measure, just because I had to make it fit timing-wise. And so after that, after the little joke, we have the introduction of the organ. We have a
And
little
we're early
glissando.
voting too.
Y'all gotta ride to the polls.
Oh, yeah.
Similar thing to last time.
Oh, I got you. We can take my hybrid.
You got a hybrid?
Yeah, it runs on gas and prayer.
Cool. So this part right here, very similar to the first part. Except for this time we have, it's the stinger, we have the horns playing. I have them playing a little stab. And if we want to look at that MIDI, it just looks like this. It's nothing crazy. So we have this playing the B flat to the C, and then the G is going up to the A, and then the E is going down a half step, playing the sharp 9. Just a typical kind of soul kind of thing. Kind of in character there for that. And then we have the organ playing this kind of counterpuntal line. Nothing crazy. Bass line is still kind of doing the same thing.
Ride to the polls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you notice this time, though, the drums and the bass are continuing throughout. And the first time, we just had the bass by itself. But you don't do the same shtick twice. So I had the drums and the bass play together, just because it also adds to the vibe. So notice it picks up a little bit here. And here's that measure 2/4 that I talked about to have it fit.
Oh, I got you. We can take my hybrid.
You got a hybrid?
Yeah, it runs on gas and prayer.
Yeah, so obviously we have, I have a truck, it runs on gas or hybrid, runs on gas and prayer, which is obviously a silly little gospel kind of vibe here. So that's what I had going on with the harmony here. So I had short little stabs. If I had it longer, it wouldn't have cut through as well. And obviously, if you notice as well, I have it cut in when we shoot to the truck.
Gas and prayer.
So obviously it cuts to it on a little after the frame, but it cuts in on the zoom in, which is silly. And so we've just been in C for like this whole section so far. And now we go to the 4 chord. And the harmony is just playing the 4 chord and the horns. Nothing crazy. We're going up to the F. So we have E flat, F, and an A. Nothing. Very simple horn line here. And then we do a different type of groove.
Got a plan to vote.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is the last section. So at first, I talked with the producer about it, and we were chatting, and I thought, hey, well, maybe we should just have drums over this whole section. And we kind of did that, and I was thinking, yeah, well, he said his words were, it needs to feel deflated I remember that specifically. And it's like, okay, well, what better way to do that than to have it kind of fall off? Kind of the third time type of thing. So we have him walk up. It's just drums stripped down. And so we don't have like kick or anything. We just kind of have auxiliary drums going on over this section. And then we have stab organ parts.
Oh, yeah.
And I specifically wanted it to stop on the hit as soon as we cut to the fist pump. So that was the first one.
Got a plan to vote.
Oh, yeah.
And then he wanted to have something different that wasn't like a quote unquote like percussion thing. So I thought it'd be cool to just have a little flute fall, kind of harkens back to the beginning. It's on brand with the vibe of the cue. So yeah. So we have the hit there, it stops. We have a little fall. And then we have the last section here.
Did you look up your polling place?
No.
Got it. Make sure your whole block votes. Register to be a block box at ngpaf.org.
So that's the last part. So we have a little different harmony here at the end. We're pulling from something that's not in the key, but it works great. We're going from the flat 3 to the 4 to the flat 7 back up to the 1. So yeah, not super crazy harmony. If you want to think about it as well, instead of the flat 7, you can think of it as the minor 4 chord. It's the same thing, just different. The voicings are just flipped around. Yeah, so it's nothing super insane or crazy. Harmony-wise, the horn section is playing. Yeah, so at the end, I wanted to have a little tenor sax, little flurry, as opposed to having him play the chords, which is, if you notice, like here, actually, that's what I had at the beginning. It's like, yeah, let's kind of spice it up a little bit. And then obviously the flute is also playing something on top of that. If you notice, we're building to this, boom, this last hit. So it runs out of gas. It's kind of does some stuff here, right, with the stab organ and the bass and the percussion. And then we have a hold drop here. So it loses its gas. And then there's a little strike 2. And then we build back up to this big punchline right here, which is the thrust of the whole piece. Get people to go out to vote. I think, being able to strip down this piece in general. So start kind of here, drop down, go here, drop down, and then go here. It's just kind of like climbing a mountain type of thing. Whereas opposed to just having music constant, while it works, it doesn't really serve the piece, because ultimately what we're trying to do is tee off the joke, tee off the punchline. And so having poignant pauses or phrases, spaces for the joke to land really accentuates it. And so doing things like messing with instrumentation, taking things in and out, moving things around, changing the register of it. At the beginning, we have organ playing in the higher register, and then we have it playing the low register in the pads, and then we have some brisk stuff here, and then we have some chords here. So it kind of moves around with that. And same thing with the brass and the bass and all sorts of stuff. So for this last section, like I mentioned, there's the 4, flat 7 or minor 4 right here. So if we notice, we end on the same kind of rhythmic idea that was in the organ, which is right here, in the flute, and the bass mirror it together. And that's how the cue ends. I said it's not really super difficult, but it's all about accentuating the piece. And so for this piece, the brief was it needed to be Ocean's 11-esque, 1970s feel, and it needed to be silly and funny and light. And so I thought, let's just do a small rhythm section. So bass kind of being this repeated pulse driving type of thing. Lots of percussion with lots of auxiliary percussion, as well as organ for some chordal harmony, and then the horn section, some light little Ron Burgundy-esque flurry flute stuff. And had I had time, I would have brought in a guitar player probably to record some stuff, but I didn't have, like I said, I had a pretty quick turnaround time. And while I can play guitar, I don't play it in this style very well. So I just decided to play to my strengths, which was bass and orchestration. I hope this video is inspiring to you in some way. Like I said, it's really silly, but it's fun to be able to stretch yourself. So the reason I knew how to do this stuff is because obviously I I studied jazz music. I was a jazz musician before I was a composer for film and media. So I was able to use some of my skill sets, but I also listened to a lot of music. I listened to a lot of James Brown, a lot of soul growing up.
How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America.
I knew the sound that I was going for, and I knew the instrumentation. Funny enough, I actually watched all the Oceans films after doing this project because I was like, man, because I listened to some of the music, and I was like, man, these are great references. And so I was like, I gotta watch those films again. Thank you guys so much for watching. There's a link over here to previous videos I've done in case you want to check them out. But until then, please like, subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you all next time.